So here we go. We are here to discuss a book that I finally got this dude to read
It's been a while. It's been a
after
long time
owning
coming.
this thing for what, a couple
A
months
month
now?
and a half. A month and a half,
My
just about.
goodness. Okay, so
Oh, wait. Yeah, it was a month and a half. It was December.
okay. All right. So we're going to get into today discussing and talking about Alphacore.
Alphacore.
All right.
What it do?
So
What it do?
Geek Stackers. All right. So let's start out by the the artist of
Oh, I should have.
Alphacore.
I should have brought mine out. I put it
You
back after I
can,
got done reading it.
yeah, you can get it out if you want. All parties involved. I'll go over this. So you have Chuck Dixon as the writer, Joe Bennett on the pencils. I always slaughter these names, so everyone forgive me. Thiago Dalbello, Emmanuel Braga, Thiago Gomez, Marcio Lorecer, and Yonami are the inkers. The colorist is Michael Bartolo and Thiago Del Ballo.
I heard you
The
butcher those names
Yeah,
from over.
I'm sorry. I apologize in advance.
Thiago Dabelo, Emmanuel Braga, Thiago Gomez, Marcio Lorzel Yonami.
Okay. And the letters are Eric Weathers and the copy editor Alan Ford. Karen Barrow and Andrew Rodriguez are assistant editors. And of course, the editor in chief, Eric July.
Before we even start, let's talk about this two-page spread right here.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I mean, you guys don't understand these things, the art. So we can start out there.
I thought you were just talking about the art just to big it up because you're a fan of Eric July, but it's actually legitimately good art. I appreciate it. I thought it was some decent art. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
So I didn't know originally who Joe Bennett was because I never read that Hulk run that he did, the Immortal Hulk. I never read it until what was it? Probably 6 months ago or so.
Yeah,
one of my one of my subscribers on my Thinking channel recommended that I read it, and I went to the comic book store and grabbed issue 1, and I was like, yo, Joe Bennett is the truth. Like, this art is,
he's him.
Wow. So I understood at that point why everyone was excited to get Joe Bennett on this book with
Chuck
legendary
Dixon is a legend within himself.
Dixon.
He created Bane. He did the Bane Conquest comic books. He did a lot of stuff with Batman. He did a lot of the cooler Nightwing stuff that you see, and it's
what cover did you get for Alphacore? I actually got 2 covers. So I got this cover and I got the foil cover, but the foil cover is the one that I'll never open. Ooh, that's fire. That cover is fire.
This one was pretty dope. It's like, it reminds me of who's the dude who did the Superman? Oh my goodness, I'm gonna forget. I don't even remember. Never mind. Oh my gosh, remember the hyper realistic art for Superman? I forget. It's like Superman Kingdom Come. Who did the Kingdom Come stuff for Superman? What was that?
I don't know because I've never really been into Superman like that. Forgive me, my Superman fans
I don't like
out there.
I don't like Superman either, but even I know about Superman Kingdom Come because like the art for it it's amazing, and that cover kind of is reminiscent of that art style.
Right. So, what is your overall before we get into? By the way, there's gonna be spoilers.
Alex Ross.
All right, Alex Ross. There's gonna be spoilers throughout
massive spoiler
podcast. So we're telling you in advance. We haven't gone over anything crazy just yet. There will be spoilers. Okay, everybody got that? Spoilers. Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Your initial reaction after reading the book, just overall, before we get into the specifics.
I think that it spurs the right amount of questions while also telling the right amount of information. So there's enough going on in it where you're like, oh, this is amazing. But also you're like, well, I kind of want to know more about this. Like how the Accepts get their powers. How are they ranked? What is like the drawbacks to having an Accept power? What are the other powers of some of the Accepts? I really don't understand what Ingrid's power is, aside from maybe like a super powered whip. I kind of want to know more about that. The same thing with Braxwell. I guess what he was called.
Yeah. So
He seems like a cool kid. I like his character design a lot.
So Eric July released during the release of ISOM #1, there were cards that you could buy. I never picked up the cards, and they went over the different powers of the characters that were introduced in ISOM 1. So I'm
So
sure
is ISOM and Alphacore the same universe?
yeah, all of it's the same universe. You
Oh,
still haven't
I
read
gotta
your
read.
ISOM
I
#1.
read ISOM.
You
Look,
are
listen,
slipping.
listen.
are
I got other
slipping.
comic books to read. Look, the Werewolf Batman came out. Okay, that's
Anyway,
obviously more
we're talking
important.
about comic books, not trash. So anyway,
Trash. Nah, you know what? I'm going off on a rant.
yeah.
That Werewolf Batman is the greatest comic book of all time.
Anyway, you hear from his laugh, he's not serious. But so what I was gonna say though, in all seriousness, yeah, those cards were released during the ISOM 1 campaign, and I'm sure you can find somebody online that has gone over all of the different powers and what's covered on the cards by this point. I'm sure that's out there. Okay, opening scene, the bank robbery.
Yo,
What
so
did the art grab you?
the art stood out, and the design of Solar or Solari or
Brian Solari. Okay,
stood
so
out to me because
I'm gonna hold up the opening
made me
page.
it made me reminiscent of like a mixture between the older Superman you get in the Kingdom Come comics, and also it's like his demeanor was more like a I'm trying to think of the demeanor that he gives off. It's like not Punisher, but like
He's
a superhero that kind of just does what he thinks is right, like the altruistic, like a Jack Reacher.
he reminds me of he's like a mix of Cyclops and Wolverine. He's a Boy Scout, yet
But
he's willing
he's
to skirt the edge just a little.
yeah,
Yeah.
he does. Yeah, he kind of does give off
Yeah.
that air because it's
Yep.
like, yeah, especially with how he handled the bank robbery thing, where he's kind of just like he just drops the dude into
So,
a
okay,
pool
so
and he throws the bomb.
So let's get into it. So there is a law in the Rippaverse called the Fawcett Act. Now this law has to deal with, I think, Alphacore specifically, if I'm not mistaken. And what that
Yeah.
says is they can only be involved in police activity if there is an except present.
Yep.
And they have to get confirmation that there's an except present. So what happened in this bank robbery situation is they got no call, but Brian Solari showed up anyway. And really and truly, it's a good thing he did. Now, the bank robber, his name was Cecil Moreno. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Cecil Moreno. He was a crony. Pretty much sent by second and third hand burner phones and accounts from
Mr. Copper.
Michael Copper. And the setup in this book is really good because you see certain things unravel as you go through the book. Like, this is the second time I read through it, and I caught stuff that I missed the first time. So I was like, oh, snap. I did not notice this the first time. This actually means something. Okay, so opening scene, you see the art. What are your initial thoughts?
I'm like, oh, hold on. Wait a minute. It's actually pretty good because like sometimes, and the thing about it, like something that I want to point out, right? The attention to detail in every panel is pretty decent because like
make sure you hold it up like in the center of your mic, because the center of your mic is the center of your video. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
So a lot of times
Up a little more.
when somebody will have a it's direct to me. When somebody will have a comic book, it'll be like the art will be good and there's some parts of the panels that look kind of bad, but I gotta find it. There's one specifically that I saw and I was like, dude, like they did not have to go this ham on it, and they could have. Yeah, this whole spread right here. I don't know if y'all can see that.
It's detailed. It's very
Right, like,
detailed.
even
Joe Bennett's
the parts
art.
that don't have that much detail are still like, you could tell there was some work that went into it. So when people say like the art isn't that good, I'm like, look, I've seen some terrible art. Okay, like there will be comic books that have like covers like this. Then the art looks like that pastel colored garbage you see in a lot of
X-Men Days of Future Past. I was fooled. I will not be fooled again. I bought issue number 1, and that was it.
And they debate you a lot where there'll be like crazy art on the outside, and there'll be a different artist doing both. It'll be an
I'm
artist that did the
fine.
outside and an artist
I'm
that did the
fine
inside.
with that. I'm fine with a cover artist being different from and the person who did the interior panels as long as the quality and the talent are commensurate, right? As
Yeah.
long as they're comparable. Like, okay, this is comparable talent. So
And I think that people who I don't know about ISOM, I haven't read it yet. I know you're gonna grill me about that. Don't care. But as far as Alphacore goes, people who say it's not a good story or like nobody cares, I'm like, it's actually like you probably didn't read it then. Like, because look,
that's
I
how I
know
felt.
as well as the next guy that some people just be meat riding somebody just because they're a fan. That
Yeah,
happens. I
that
know
happens.
it
It does
happens all the
happen.
time. It happens very often. But this is actually a decent story. It's not a bad story. Like people who are like, it's a lackluster. Like it's a good story. Considerably compared, it's like since it's like the first issue. For a
Right.
first issue, this is pretty freaking good. It draws you in. It makes you start asking questions. You're like, okay, what about this? Like, what's the deeper meaning behind this, and what happens after that? Like, how is Copper ever gonna get caught? Do they ever get more information about him?
Yeah.
Do we
I
get more backstory on Brian Solari's time in the military?
so
Like,
I think so. There's several things. There's several things, in my humble opinion, that have, I guess, set the Rippaverse on a course that haters are just gonna hate, right? Because people don't like Eric July,
well, there's
and
certain people on Twitter who are going crazy, even though they were
oh
fans
my
months
man,
prior,
I
and
mean,
and there
there
and
is
then
like a
the
whole campaign of hatred that's like, and
right.
okay, so
Even
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let me say this, and then I'll be quiet and let you finish your thought. There is a difference between legitimate critique and just outright hatred. And we're on the outright hatred train. There is some legitimate critique of the Rippaverse out there because I've heard some of it is legitimate. People that's like, yo, I don't know about this, maybe this, but there's some that's just hatred. Anyway, I'll let you continue.
no, I mean I'll agree because even like the what's the new one that came out? The something men. What was it? The new one, Chuck Dixon
Oh,
and
Horseman. Horseman.
Horseman. Horseman. One of the critiques people had about it was the name was corny. I'm like, dude, every comic book hero ever's name is corny.
Yes.
Like with no context, hearing the name Superman, you're like, Superman?
Batman.
What's
Come on. You
Batman?
mean to tell me you
Look,
we love these characters because of the
Ant-Man.
history.
Ant-Man.
Iron Man.
Iron, like see
when you
Iron stuff like
when you think
like
of these names, it's like because they're staples in comic book history,
you
you just
understand
accept
it as
it.
something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm just like I'm sitting here and because I look, to be honest, I'm supporting Eric July just because I'm like, you know what, it's cool. This was up. The art is amazing. Story could be great. I haven't read any of the comics I got until today, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, niggas are hating for no reason. Niggas like you would say stuff, and I'd be like, I don't know, could be.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, nah, they just hate to hate.
I will reserve I will reserve my thoughts on what you think until you read ISOM #1. Because that'll give you and I'll say this, laying the groundwork for you reading ISOM #1. You have to realize at that point Eric July had never written a single comic book. Never. This, like him as a writer.
Wasn't he in the industry for a while?
No, he was reviewing books, but as far as I know, I could be mistaken. Somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I don't think he was in the industry as far as like a creator. So this is his first foray into writing. And when people read ISOM #1, I know we're kind of getting off the rails, but you kind of have to set this up and talk about Alphacore. When people read ISOM #1, what they didn't realize is, yo, this is a new writer, brand new, creating an entire universe. You really do got to give a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
If it was an industry vet, then I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna judge a little more harshly. You're brand
like
new.
if Jim Lee made a comic book and I was like, this art's kind of trash. I'd be able to critique that because he's genuinely good artist. So you'd be like, what the heck is this?
Right.
I think because now I'm kind of set my expectations within reality because like after reading Alphacore, I was kind of expecting I just want to be the same way, but it might be like because Chuck Dixon wrote this.
Right. Alphacore is not or ISOM #1 is not Alphacore. But with that in mind, with the fact that Eric July is a brand new writer, and of course he got Cliff Richardson, which is an industry vet, and there's a whole controversy about him using 3D models. You can see the places where he used them. So, it does not detract from the book. I can tell you that right now.
I think that an industry vet I definitely think he should look into if he ever watches this video by some happenstance. Keith Williams.
Oh
Keith
yeah,
Williams.
for as far as
He did a lot
artists.
of the Wolverine
Yeah.
versus Spider-Man stuff. He did Punisher versus Spider-Man stuff, and a lot of his are in the 80s and 90s was freaking amazing. So if it's any
Yeah.
industry vet, I would definitely say I would enjoy seeing some art from in the ISOM universe or in the ISOM universe. It's Keith Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd agree with that. And that'd be definitely a decent pick. And he's picking up, Deborah Carita, who's drawing
Saw
Yaira.
that.
Deborah Carita, I didn't know who she was. I'll be honest with you. So I'm not gonna sit up here like I knew about her work. But when I looked into her and looked up her art and then went to her Instagram page, I was like, bruh.
Look, he's picking up talented people, and I think it's par for the course because a lot of times in the comic book industry, as of late, they're just like, "Who's the most diverse person we could pick? How
Right.
black, gay, and or left are you? Then we'll hire you." And
Yeah.
Eric July is like putting a thumb on their neck because he's like, "No, who's the most talented?
Right. I don't care what you
Who's the most
believe.
talented
Just bring
person?"
your talent.
Right. Like I'm pretty sure one of the people on the Yaira sisters is left wing.
I
I'm not
think
mistaken.
I think they were the Saska sisters. I think they were at
Yeah,
one point.
Saska sisters.
I'm not sure if they are now. But even if they were, it's
He's
irrelevant.
just hiring talented
Right.
people. Yeah, and
It's
I think
irrelevant.
that when it comes to art, you should, especially something you're passionate about, right? You should choose the best decision to make it the best it can be. Not, well, because I don't like this person and like because they think this thing I don't believe in, I'm just gonna, outside of the obvious, right? I'm just
Yeah.
gonna, throw them to
Yeah,
the
no
wayside. And it's just it's good to see it because it's a lot of nerds out there who are getting sick and tired of seeing these garbage comic books because you have a lot of cool comic books coming out from indie people. Like you got Ninja Nico, freaking dope comic book I got at a con.
I remember you telling me about that.
A while back. Freaking amazing comic book, and he has Giancarlo Espinosa as his villain in the comic book, and it's really freaking dope. Like the art is
Nice.
amazing, and the story is amazing too. Then you have stuff like Silverline comic books, a whole freaking studio of just people just making comic books that are
Yeah.
good, and not because they're like, oh well, how can we pan? Like, no, this is just good. This is a good artist. This is a good writer. This is a good story. Let's just put it out.
Right.
And I think that the reason that Rippaverse is gaining so much traction is because they're focusing solely on making good things and not like who can we pander to the most.
Yeah.
The Pandaverse is dying.
Oh
Slowly but
my
surely.
goodness, that was such a
Pandaverse.
hilarious. Yeah. Okay, so Alphacore, who is okay? So I'm gonna tell you who my favorite character was through the entire book. It was actually Wilkins, the officer who
Really?
died. Yeah, yeah,
Dang.
he was one of my
I'm
favorite
not
characters.
gonna lie. I was in between Braxwell and Ingrid. But I have to say Braxwell just because he's just him. He seems like a him character.
He's
Like
mysterious.
he seems like and he also seems like
Yeah.
the character that comes in right when you need him the most.
He's that dude. He's that dude.
He's
Yeah.
that dude. He's him.
So the scene. So there's one guy in the book. I can't remember his name. I thought I wrote it down. I didn't. Who has the power of persuasion? He persuades this lawyer to jump out
I
the
don't think
window.
they got his name. Oh, you know what song he was listening to?
Dr.
He was
Dre.
listening to Kendrick Lamar. Oh,
was
it was Dr. Dre?
Was it Dr. Dre? I'm pretty sure it was Dr. Dre.
It might have been a Dr. Dre song because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it might have just been Kendrick's. Was it sampled that song at some point?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But it was like, what was it?
so
Let me find
the concept was
We
there was
gotta break them off something. Heck yeah, and it's gotta be bumping City of Compton. You might be right.
yeah,
you might
pretty
be
sure
right.
pretty sure it was a Dr. Dre song.
Might be right,
Anyway,
Dr.
so
Dre
the premise is there was a villain who had the power of persuasion, persuaded this lawyer to jump out of a window. Part of the greater plot. We'll probably get to that. But Braxwell shows up. He was called in by the police. They're like, "Hey, we got a situation." So he shows up with his headphones bumping, so he couldn't hear anything. So this guy had no ability to persuade him, and he just put some tape over his mouth
Pause on
and then put the beat down on these two, big
Pause
dudes
on
that
it.
he
Yeah,
had
they
there
were
to
like-
protect him.
They were like, wait, you taking my homeboy? He's like,
Bumping the music, giving a beat down.
like imagine a dude breaking it down while beating you,
It
while
was
beating you to the ground.
it was
It's
crazy. So
And I think that something that I think is important, right? This is a look, and I don't talk about this very often, but it is Black History Month. This is a black man creating a comic book universe that is the most successful African American comic book
I
in
think so.
American history, right?
I don't know that for a fact. I'm gonna say I don't know that for a fact, but I think he is.
And to put it into perspective, the stuff that they do put culturally that people who are black can like identify with, it doesn't seem forced, right?
Right.
Like I thought
Right.
the fact that he was listening to Dr. Dre in the headphones beating the dude, I'm like, oh, that's dope. But it wasn't like the Thor, the Miles Morales what ifs where they made him Thor and they had, Odin wearing Tim's. And I was like, okay,
That was,
this is
oh my goodness.
this is
That was,
crazy.
yeah, that
Like
was
you can you
cringeworthy.
can you
That
can
was
tell that
cringeworthy for real.
they it's not that they're able to help create stories that multiple people can identify with without making it feel forced. And I feel like a lot of comic books are missing that nowadays. A lot of shows are missing that. A lot of movies are missing that. And finding a medium where they can actually do this in a tasteful way, it doesn't seem like they're talking down to you while doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett did their thing with this.
their thing. So it opens up with the bank robber Cecil Moreno with a hostage, and he was sent there by Michael Cooper to retrieve some files from this bank from a safety deposit box. These files would link Michael Cooper and Lillian Renashi to some other things that they would care not to be linked to
Exactamundo.
some financial transactions and things they would like to just go away. They sent him in there as the fall guy to pretty much destroy these files. What he didn't know is the suicide vest they put on him was actually
Was
real.
real.
He
Yeah,
didn't
so
think it was real.
and the thing about it was I didn't recognize, I was like, because look, they put that into the beginning of the book. I didn't even think about it. He was like, he threw it, and then the dude got up out of the pool. He's like, I'm surprised it went off. He's like, what are you talking about?
He didn't
Right?
know.
And then I was
Yeah.
like, I was confused for a second. I'm like, what does he mean? What's he talking about? And then when it got to the point where it talks about it, I'm like, I see.
Yeah.
They needed a useful idiot.
Yeah, they did, and they had one. And Michael Cooper thought that was all wrapped up, but he was not planning on, which, okay, so this even makes more sense. He would be familiar with the Fawcett Act. So he's like, I'm sending in a regular dude, not an except.
Yeah,
They'll
so he
never
wasn't
call
planning
Alphacore.
on one of the Alphacore people handling the situation, right? And then what made it even worse was Galvin, the dude that they caught, actually, that they kind of. So you can speak to this because you talked about this earlier.
Okay.
About how they're trying to arrest the girl for the Dollar General thing.
Okay, so what happened was Michael Cooper really messed up. Lillian Renashi walks in and she's like, "Are you behind this?" And he's like, kind of sitting there cocky and confident, like, yeah, I've wrapped this up, took care of all my loose ends. And she was like, no, you didn't, buddy, because Alphacore showed up. Yeah. He didn't know how everything planned out. So in order to fix that mess up, he sends in an except whose name is Galvin. I think Galvin James was his name. He has some kind of electricity powers.
To control electricity.
So here's how they set this up. So it sets you up to allude to the fact that there's corrupt cops. Here's the setting. The cops show up to arrest this woman for a felony charge. She robbed something from a Dollar General, I think she said. So you're like, they sent all of these cops for a Dollar General. So the point was place Galvin James there, have the cops show up, have an except show up to deal with him, which Braxwell comes out of nowhere and gives him the beat down.
Bruh, he freaking hit him with the drop kick like immediately, because I was like,
man.
when they got the call, because I didn't even know Braxwell was a character. I thought homeboy Brian was gonna go deal with it. Then you see Braxwell come out of nowhere, just hit the dude, and they talking to him like, oh, thank you so much. He's just like
stoic. I like because
I love characters like that,
right? Because I don't have the cards. I don't know if Braxwell just doesn't speak much, or it like I don't know what's going on with that. The reason behind his lack of speaking. But so now they put this dude in prison, in the same prison that Cecil Moreno is in, the dude who robbed the bank earlier. They send this lawyer. What was the lawyer's name? I wrote his name down. The lawyer's name.
It starts with an N.
Let me see. That's the Chief Holcomb. Galvin is that dude. Oh, I didn't write the lawyer. Oh, Randall. That's what his name was. His name was like Randall.
That sounds like a corrupt lawyer name, though.
It does. Like even when I heard the name, I was oh yeah, this dude.
You know why? Because Randall from Monsters Inc. That's what it is.
No. His name was Ridley. My bad.
Ridley.
Ridley Venison. So through, Venison. Of course, of course, Vanison, I think is how you say it. So, of course, through a bunch of different entities, so it's not traced back to them. They hire this lawyer. The lawyer comes in to talk to Cecil, and he's like, "What did you tell the cops?" So he's like, "I didn't tell them anything outside of the fact that they didn't tell me the bomb was real. So now the cops know somebody else hired him. He messed up. He wasn't supposed to say any of that." So you see Ridley get up with this like smirk on his face, and he goes to see his next client, who's guess who? Galvin James. Yeah. You don't see what exactly he says to him, but the next thing you see, so they got Galvin James grounded, so he can't use his electric powers. I think Ridley might have handed him something to take off that grounding, because I think when he called the officer for a cigarette, he didn't have that on, and he grabbed his taser.
The officer.
Yeah, he grabbed the taser.
It was
the radio? Oh, okay, it was the radio.
Yeah. And then he got tased.
Yes,
by
this
the chick,
female
and
officer
he was like, "Don't do that." He's like, "It hurts so good." And he starts cooking niggas.
Yeah,
and he melts this dude.
He gets out and he kills Cecil. Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I don't know if you could hear the excitement from us talking again. I read it for a second time.
Can I show the panel?
Yeah, you can. All right. Eric doesn't mind that. So yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Look, and it looks like no offense to Eric July, but it looks like a legit comic book. You know.
Yeah,
like, I know that's crazy to say, but like it looks like.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. To a testament to Eric July's, I don't know what you want to call his dedication. He put together a legitimate comic book universe. He is not playing around. For all the drama that's surrounding the Rippaverse and all the people that are hating, we are here to tell you he is not playing around. The Rippaverse is very, very serious. And you get that inclination as you read these books.
Well, and because like usually you read an indie comic book, there's like a few like rough places. You're like, yeah. And then there might be some in ISOM. I haven't read it yet. But as far as Alphacore goes,
you know what I did? I did something for research purposes. I went and looked up some really old comic books. The introduction of Fantastic Four and some other books. Now, granted, this was another time, right? Introduction of Iron Man. One of the complaints that I'd heard during the release of ISOM #1 is, we didn't tell us enough, blah, blah, blah. You read some of these original books, you don't get much detail about these characters.
And there's certain things about certain characters you don't really get much highlight on until like 20 chapters later.
Right. And I think personally, again, this is not to attack anyone. This is what I think. This is my honest opinion. I think there are people who have been weaponized to hate Eric July without really reading or looking into any of the books objectively. Now, that's not to say there's not legitimate critiques, because there's a lot of people that think, oh, you guys just think there's no, there are legitimate critiques. But much of what you hear is noise. It's not legitimate critiques. It's just hatred veiled as a critique. It's not really a critique. It's hatred. Anyway, you were going to say.
I don't even remember. Wait, no. I think people, if somebody's like, oh, there's a fire, right? And they're looking for a fire, they'll find a fire. Just like if somebody says, oh, I hate this thing, they'll find something to hate, whether there's a legitimate reason or not. And I think that's what's going on with Eric July, because he is in part of the establishment and he's doing his own thing, and he's pretty much like screaming a giant like screw you to the establishment comic book industry and all the people involved. It's pissing a lot of people off, and they don't know how to handle it because it's actually good. So they start nitpicking at little things, and it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny to watch.
It is kind of funny to watch, and it's, in a way, they're creating what is it called, the Streisand effect, and talking so much about the Rippaverse. Like, Eric July is constantly trending on X now, like constantly. So
look, I'll give you a good example. So there's a YouTuber I used to watch, Etika. Anybody who knows him, real dude. Him and his friend, I forget his name, but they had beef with someone on YouTube, right? And what they did was they explained the situation, and they came up with this phrase. They called it eviscerating, right? And they were like, "We're eviscerating this dude." So this is what this means. He doesn't exist anymore. If anybody talks about him in chat, I'm gonna say, "I don't know who you're talking about. Don't send him any hate. Don't send him anything. Just forget about him. He no longer exists." And the dude literally lost like all his viewers. Like nobody was looking at his channel at all. Nothing happened. And I think
That's
that if people
crazy.
really wanted to hurt Eric July, they would just stop talking about him. Or maybe they're just too stupid to realize what they got to do.
No, I think there's this thought that if you lob enough at him, like, okay, so I had an interaction with a gentleman today on YouTube. I was commenting on a video by John Delaraz where he was talking about
Oh
the
yeah,
Horseman, which we'll talk
I
about
watched. I
later.
watched that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my comment. I said, it's really crazy the level of hatred the Rippaverse is getting. I'm honestly astonished. The attacks are on everything for any reason imaginable. I guess Eric hit the exact right chord because everyone is singing. This is the response I got. The response is, there's a lot of fair criticism against Rippa too. I think Eric has done a horrible job, and the drama with EVS has, which I didn't really want to mention that, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah, the drama with EVS has exposed him. Now, I disagree. I think what's happening is there's people who bring up, let's call them legitimate critiques. Let's call them that. I'll call them legitimate critiques. And Eric July responds, do you have to agree with every critique that's lobbed your way? What if you don't agree? This is the problem I have.
Fair.
People act as though if somebody critiqued this video and me or you said, oh, you know what? That's a fair critique. But what if what if somebody critiqued the video and we said, no, we don't agree? Are we not allowed to say, no, we don't agree with your critique?
Yeah, it's like you either it's like you agree with me or you're just stupid. Like it's
so I have
weird
to do it
because
your way. So I have to do
you
everything
can you
your
can
way.
like you can recognize someone has an opinion about something and still be like, that's cool. I respect your opinion. I just don't agree. And it's like we've lost that capabilities. But I mean,
yeah.
But the thing about it is, a lot of these people are coming from X, aka Twitter, and like I'm gonna be honest, a lot of people on there are mostly brain dead. 100% accuracy.
I wouldn't say that, but I will say it's easy to be caught in an echo chamber. And that's why look, there will legitimately come a time where I go over things within the initial launch of the Rippaverse that could have been done better. There's a reason I won't do it now. And here's why. I'm not going to pile on to Eric because what he's doing is something great. I'm not here to pile on to him and point out every single thing that could have been done better. I'm not doing what he's doing. I'm not launching a comic book universe. I'm not putting up my own money and betting on myself.
Because I have a question to that, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Do you think just because someone's doing something you like, it should insulate them from legitimate critiques?
No, it shouldn't. What I'm saying is, if you launched something legitimate that you were passionate about, it needed some work, but I could tell, the passion is there, and everybody was dogpiling on you. What sense would it make for me to add to that? Like, I can wait till later. I can wait till later to offer legitimate criticism. Like, I actually enjoy everything he's put out. That doesn't mean there's no legitimate criticism, but I'm not getting ready to dogpile on while everybody's lobbing.
If asked, would you explain what your legitimate criticisms are?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to do it right now. I refuse. Yeah. And the reason I refuse is not because I'm a shill for Eric. It's because this is legitimate quality. This is not trash. This is legit. I'll give you an example. One of the critiques somebody lobbed was, there was like maybe two or three editing errors in ISOM number 1, right? It's a first launch, first book, new universe.
I mean, and the thing about it is, you can talk about editing errors. You go to the bigger comic book industry.
Hold on, I got one for you. Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, there is an editing error that I've not seen anyone talk about. When I read it, it again, and I read it again. Like, hold on, did I read?
Wait, yeah, breaking news? What's the editing error?
I can't remember. But it's not like a major deal. It's just I want to say it was like a word missing, and I caught it because I was reading it and read the word in, but it wasn't there, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, huh? Did I read that right? And I read it again, like. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
should make a short about that.
The,
It'd be
the
interesting.
the whole reason I didn't is because I afford Marvel, as much as they've been messing up, the same grace I afford Eric July. I'm not getting ready to pile on what's a good book.
Yeah,
Like
because Marvel's getting a lot of heat
Ultimate
nowadays.
Spider-Man is a good book that
So
deserves
it's
the
like
praise it's getting.
because you want the good stuff to survive, you'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna wait till it can actually stand on its own 2 feet to
Yeah.
actually lob a
Yeah.
rock over there.
Yeah. Once
Okay,
once all of this blows
I could
over,
understand that.
yeah,
I can
once all of
understand
this
that.
blows over, I will definitely go over my legitimate critiques. And it's not, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not it's not like
It's nothing
company
groundbreaking.
ending stuff. Yeah, it's like nothing burgers. Like, yeah, this is things that could have been done different, but who cares?
But because everybody's nitpicking at certain things that don't even make sense,
Like, I
even if
refuse.
he does see the critiques and they are valid, he's just probably gonna group it in with the same vein of
Yeah, because
stuff.
everybody's dogpiling. It's like this is a
Yeah.
dogpile now. Like it's gone beyond the realm of critique and gone in age. Anyway, back to Alphacore, which we were on. The story. What did you think of the story? Chuck freaking Dixon.
I thought the story was a really, really good setup to
Chuck
something else that's going on.
freaking
You ever see
Dixon.
that picture? You ever see that picture of Dwayne Wade and LeBron James? And Dwayne Wade kind of throws up the ball and kind of just goes like this, and LeBron dunks it like right behind him.
Yeah.
This is Dwayne Wade throwing up the lob. All he's got to do is slam dunk it.
Yo, I think Yaira is getting ready to be
You
something
think Yaira's
serious.
gonna be dope?
I
See.
think Yaira might be the best book, the Rippaverse. I don't know, Horseman.
So
Ooh.
my question would be, yeah, because Horseman's a more
Ooh, and
ground
Gooding.
level villain.
Cause oh yeah. Oh man.
So it's a more street level
Oh man,
hero. So
Gooding
it's
is
like
gonna be good too.
I wonder how people who aren't accepts
Yeah, accepts. That's
who
correct.
aren't accepts deal with all this stuff that's going on.
Right, which is
You know?
why a street level character makes so much sense.
Yeah.
When I watched a video, the fact that okay, here's how you know the mark of a good universe or the mark of something that is actually going to be groundbreaking. Joe Bennett and Chuck Dixon are so excited to work on Rippaverse properties, they're coming up with new characters. When a creative starts creating more stuff, that's probably
That's
a
how you
good
know it's about to get
indication that
crazy. Yeah.
this is getting ready to get serious. And I think a lot of Eric July is a newcomer. Out of nowhere, he has the Saska sisters, Deborah Carita, Joe Bennett, Cliff Richards,
Chuck
Dixon. What's his name? How could I forget this man's name? Writing Gooding, Davis. Oh man, how could I forget this name? Forgive me. This is like sacrilege. The fact that I forget this name. My goodness. So I'm drawing a complete blank, and this is crazy. So anyway, while I get this name out because my brain is on
Yeah, because
straight.
I was like, man, I feel like I've heard of this talking about.
Oh, you know who I'm talking about. It's one of those moments where everybody knows who I'm talking about. We all know this person, and my brain just went straight dead, and now I can't figure out who I was talking about, which is
Oh my
stupid.
goodness.
This makes me mad. Baron Davis.
Gooding. Baron Davis.
Yeah.
Mike Baron.
Yeah, Mike Barron. I don't know why I said Baron Davis. Mike Barron.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
thinking,
like, Baron
I'm thinking,
Davis.
I'm
You talking
thinking
about the
basketball.
player?
Yeah, I'm thinking
For the
basketball.
Warriors? I was like, wait,
Yeah.
Baron Davis. I had to like
Yeah.
Baron Davis.
Yeah,
Mike Baron.
Mike
Yeah,
Barron.
Mike Baron.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the Flash stuff.
Yes, and what's funny is Eric July grew up on the Wally West Flash, which is what Mike Barron was writing.
Wally West Flash is the most powerful one right now, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people said that. I can't speak to that because I wasn't really a huge Flash fan, so that's more your lane. But okay, so I said all that to say the Alphacore story was so tightly put together. When I tell you it was tightly put together, everything was wrapped up in one book, but you wanted more and you knew there was more.
and there was questions that you would have that you're like, it's not like glaring questions, but it's like you're like, I want to know more about that. Like the sign of good world building is you have questions you want answers to, but it's not enough to make you dislike what you're looking at now.
Yes. So I'll tell you, in my humble opinion, when you read I Sum #1, that will be your takeaway. Like, I have more questions, but not questions that make me angry, questions that make me want more. Like,
Yeah,
tell me more about this.
it's like that one more episode mentality where it's
So
like,
here's what's funny. In ISUM number 1, Yaira and Alphacore were revealed. That's what generated the interest in Alphacore and Yaira. As far as I remember, Eric didn't have any intention of making solo books for Yaira or Alphacore. And as the fan
these
spoke,
dudes
he
are
said, "All
ISO number
right,
one.
I get it.
So
You want to
wait,
know more."
wait. A comic book publisher that actually listens to the gripes and complaints of fans?
So here, and to my point, right? To my point, I've heard Eric July on several occasions say, a friend of mine called me to bring up X, Y, and Z. He just, as a matter of fact, just recently, I think, who is it? Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers.
Oh yeah.
I think Jeremy called him and was like, I think that's who it was. It was one of the guys from Friday Night Tights. I'm pretty sure it was Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. Called him and was like, look, I get it. All the drama's going on. You need to focus on the positive stuff and leave that stuff alone. And Eric made a video
He's
and said,
right.
you know what? He's right. He's right.
Yeah.
I need to. So I'm like, so wait a minute. You mean a person who actually called him with a legitimate critique he listened to? How
Look,
about that?
and something that I think is important, right? Definitely important, is that the Rippaverse is so community focused, where they interact with the people in their community and they listen to the people in the community. And you know what situation this reminds me of so much? Bungie. Bungie was the same way when they were up and coming. They were very community focused. They connected with people who were in their community, who enjoyed the things they created, and it led to them being one of the most successful studios of all time. And then now they make Destiny, and that's the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They did their thing. They did their thing on the come up.
It is.
So,
And
all
I
right.
think
So
that
getting back. I don't want to derail too much. Getting back to the
yeah,
to out.
we keep
Yeah, because we're
Alpha
getting
Core.
okay. So now, what's his name?
I don't know what
Galvin
we're talking about.
kills Cecil, right? Cecil, yeah.
And
Galvin
escapes.
kills Cecil, burns him alive.
Yeah.
Now you get to see Ingrid is more of an investigator. Yeah,
she's more of a detective than people thought. She was gonna
Right.
become a detective before she became part of Alphacore.
Right.
And she mentions that to Wilkins, where she's like, okay, this is interesting.
Right.
You get to know more about her character, but you're not like left with nothing.
Right.
And I think after that they end up going to go find Galvin because they found like an associate of his. And they eventually get to the door and the door can't open. And this is where you find out Wilkins has powers. But he's like, I'm not really on that level. I don't really think it's that important. And he opens the door and they start fighting him. And it's like,
So
you
he-
can tell that Wilkins kind of has an inferiority complex a little bit compared to the rest of the Excepts.
So let me deal with the detractors right out the gate. Yes, Wilkins has similar powers to Magneto. Here is the thing that it really baffles me. You can look at Marvel and DC and see how they had influences on each other with the different characters that were created. That's not
The
new.
Flash and Quicksilver.
That's not new. So
Superman and Century.
Right. So when I hear that as a critique, I'm like, yo, you're talking about people that grew up on this stuff. You don't think they're going to create something that's similar? Like, that's not like that to me, this is just my humble opinion. That's not a legitimate critique. In my humble opinion.
I think everything is inspired by everything. Like every single story that's ever been created is based off of the same 7 stories. So you can't really say
gonna have
too much
inspiration.
about people, right?
Yeah.
And as long as it's not straight up saying, yeah, he's a former Holocaust survivor.
He's from Krypton.
And now he hates humans. Yeah, like as long as it's not like straight up just ripping something off, it's like you can pretty much do whatever you want with every type of power system that comes up.
Right. So so now we get to them getting to Galvin. Now I liked the gangsterness of Ingrid because
Ingrid was dope. Something that so a critique I do have.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't really get a gauge on what her powers are exactly. Like, is it a
I'm the same
super powered
way.
whip?
Yeah, I'm
is
the
it
same
like
way.
like
I
what?
don't really know.
And I wish there was a little more explanation on that. Like it's not
But
like a
if you bought the
game-breaking thing
cards,
for me.
that's what I'm saying. If you bought the cards, it probably explains
But
that.
maybe it's something that'll be like talked about more when we get deeper into her story.
I'm
I was because I remember I was watching the scene. I'm like, okay, what do the whips do? Like she can't fly, so it's nothing to do with that. But she had these things on her. Like what's the connection?
What's going on? Yeah,
I just had a lot of questions. That
I
was like one of the only aggravating things about this.
the first time I saw Omega Red in a comic book, in an X-Men comic book, I was like, okay, Russian dude that's big with tentacles.
What
What
is like what's going
exactly,
on here?
yeah, goes
Yeah.
on there?
So and
Yes.
like and I'll give the Grizz as it's a character introduction, so it's like a lot that's not going to be talked about, and they probably like nobody has enough time to talk about every little thing
No,
that needs
you
to be talked
couldn't in
about
one.
in one
Now,
episode.
now think about this. Think about the size of that book. Was it 104 pages? Think about if this was an initial launch regular comic book, the amount of stuff you wouldn't have. Think about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot you got
Just
in this
because
book.
this is like the books that Eric July releases is more akin to like
It's graphic novels.
a little small a little smaller, like 25% the size of a trade paperback. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Legitimate graphic
Which
novels.
is dope.
Well,
Like it's like, you know what?
you know he was, so amongst all graphic novels, which manga is included in there. I want to say, was it Isum? I think it was Isum 1 and 2 were like number 3 in sales. That's like up against manga. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's pretty up there. He's doing some numbers cuz people tried to compare him to regular floppy comics, and they're not floppies. So you can't put it in that category. Well, you could if you wanted to. You can do whatever you want, but
Yeah.
it's a graphic novel. Like, that's really what it is. And at the time, I'm trying to remember, I think Eric July covered this in one of his videos. At the time ISOM number 1 was released, it was like number 3 or 4, something like that, in graphic novels sold. And I was like, bro, that's huge. That is huge. Like, he was up there with manga. I was like, yo, that's a big deal.
That
That's
is
a
a big, because
really big deal.
manga's going crazy. I'm trying to check because I'm trying to figure out how they're measured, like what list this is from.
Yeah.
Um,
If I find a video, we'll have to cover it at another time, because I can't remember. I didn't really plan on mentioning this. I can't remember what video it was. Let me see. Some graphic novel sales.
but that's interesting though, to compete with manga like that.
Yeah, he's really Eric July is really doing numbers. But getting back, because I know you keep getting off the beaten path with this. This book, what it built upon, the story that it told, how it got to these places, the interwoven stories. Michael Copper and Vivian Lillian, I don't know why I keep saying Vivian, Lillian Renashi. These are some bad people. And I like the way they're building them up, kind of like they're not, obviously not like Kingpin because it's 2 of them, but they have
Right.
that same kind of feel,
Well,
but a
the
little
part
more
that
grand.
the part that gets me the most is they knew that the Alphacore was gonna get that hard drive and plug it into something.
Well, no, so they didn't. They thought the police force was gonna get it, right? Because I think they can control the Eagle's Nest. So the Eagle's Nest, which they were trying to decide on a name in the book, which is hilarious. The Eagle's Nest is like a floating, what's the thing the Avengers had? I'm like drawing a blank.
Helicarrier.
The helicarrier. It's like a helicarrier, and that's the headquarters for Alphacore. Now, what Lillian did to clean up Michael Copper's mess, she had the dude that had the power of persuasion, go into the bank, go into the safety deposit box, pull out the papers, and put in a jump drive. So when the police came, they would find a jump drive. The idea is they wanted the jump drive to, they thought the police were going to pick it up. They were going to put it in a computer somewhere there at Police Plaza, and
Right.
it was going to somehow destroy the place. I don't know exactly what it was going to do. Maybe, I don't know, gas line, whatever. It was going to do something, right? It was a computer virus. Alphacore picks it up. There is their tech person on the Eagle's Nest was like,
Well,
hey,
she's not a tech person. She just helped him get back
Right.
into his Getflix.
yeah, which they said Getflix, which is hilarious.
Oh my
So
gosh.
she's like, wisely so, for anybody who works in IT, you know this. If you
don't just
find
plug random flash
jump drive
drives.
somewhere, you'd never plug it into any device that's networked to anything.
Especially a work computer,
Yeah.
bro. Like you're
So
working they're working for the government, and they're just plugging this stuff into work computers.
so Brian Solari grabs the jump drive out of her hand, plugs it in, and the eagle's nest goes into full meltdown. Full
Like
meltdown.
the amount of he's losing his security clearance for sure. I'm sorry.
He got
They're
to take the
pulling his
CPT
clearance.
over again. He
He
got to
got to
take that.
CPT over, and they're pulling his clearance
Yeah,
immediately.
you're done. You're done, buddy. You're done.
He's not gonna be able to touch a work computer for the next 3 years.
Yeah, that was hilarious. But I like it because it built. So Brian Solari's character, I liked a lot more than I thought I was gonna like, because he's like I said, a mix of a boy scout, kind
and a
of
rebel.
a
You know what? He kind of
goofball a little bit and kind of a
yeah.
rebel a little bit, like a mix of all of those, which is weird.
It's like Captain America and Punisher,
Meets
but
Wolverine.
also the Flash.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good like mentality wise. Yeah, he's like all of those mixed in one, which is
It's
weird.
interesting. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I liked it a lot. When he got to fight Billy Bob, you know what I love? I love the fact that these characters don't have like superhero and supervillain names. Some of them don't,
Yeah.
right? Some of them do, some of them don't. It's like this.
Well,
weird,
they call him Solar, and the dude just goes by the one dude just goes by his name.
yeah, Billy Bob. Yeah.
The part that I thought was I was really cool was Solar got his butt whooped.
Oh yeah.
He got cooked.
Oh
He
yeah.
got his butt whooped.
Oh yeah.
Right, which means like I think in this universe, it's not all about the powers you have; it's how you utilize them as well. Because the fire dude ended up getting got by a regular dude, by a bank teller dude. He's
Yeah,
like,
he locked him in a vault and robbed him of
limited
air.
oxygen.
Yeah.
He's cooked.
Yeah, he went into hypoxia, and then as soon as he passed out, they went up in there and handled business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, standing on business. That bank teller was standing on business.
Standing on business. And I like the fact that Chuck Dixon used that kind of literary device where it's like you said, you realize it's not really about your powers. How are you using what you have?
So
And-
this makes me think that the oh my goodness, I keep forgetting the name of
Horseman.
the Horseman.
Yeah.
A Horseman's gonna be a character that's more analytical about certain things.
So let me deal with what the detractors are going to say right out the gate.
That's Batman.
Yes, the Horseman is similar to Batman. Obviously, Batman influences. Like
Every dark character is kind of similar to Batman.
like that's not a dig. Like the fact that you took inspiration from if I created a comic book, I am 44 years old. How can I read comic books from there you go. How can I read comic books from 13 to 44 and go to write a comic book and those comic books not influence my own creation? How is that possible? Now that doesn't mean I'm going to rip it off. That doesn't mean I have no original ideas.
Here's what you do. You get a script for a movie about the comic book. Don't read the comic book and do something completely different. That's how you do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's how movies are made now. Comic book movies are made.
Yeah.
Don't read the
but
comic book, just make something.
I think that the Rippaverse universe is looking very interesting. So by the end of the book, right, we get to talk about your favorite character. So was it Brian and Braxwell are trying to stop the Eagle's Nest from landing on the police square?
Yeah.
As like old homegirl and the other copper dude are like controlling it. Yeah, they're laughing, making jokes.
Lillian,
like,
Renashi, yeah. They were going in.
And Braxwell and Brian, seemingly the two strongest on the Alphacore team, can't stop it. So then you see Wilkins. He kind of just looking at there. He's like, And you know that look. You're like, uh-oh. He about to go crazy. And he ends up using his powers to control metal to stop the Eagle's Nest at the cost of his own life.
And what I love about the Rippaverse, you'll never see Wilkins again. He says when characters die, they're dead. That's it. And I'm like, I actually like that. As much as I loved Wilkins, I loved his character.
So what would you do if ISOM just ended and he just gets clapped like he's dead? It's over.
You know, if Eric July sticks to his guns, I will respect that. I wouldn't like it because I actually like ISOM. Contrary to what other people say, I think ISOM is a great character. Now, and here's the thing. Nobody's going to like everything. Do you know that there are Marvel comics I never read and never have read because I'm not interested. You don't
Yeah.
have to be interested in everything a comic book universe puts out. You might like Spider-Man, but maybe you don't like Iron Man. You may love Thor, but maybe you're not really that interested in Hulk. You might like X-Men, but you don't really care about Avengers. That is a
You might
possibility.
like Doctor Stone, but you refuse to watch Attack on Titan. You know, everybody has their thing.
People have their things. People have their things.
People have
Now,
their
I don't refuse to watch Attack on Titan. I just haven't
He
watched it
refuses.
yet.
He refuses. Don't let him lie to you.
But so with that said, you get to the end of the book, he's dead, and then Alphacore shows up to an airport where Lillian and Michael
This is probably my favorite.
are getting ready to get on a plane and go on vacation. So Alphacore shows up. They've traced all of their shell corporations, and they run down the list. Which I'm gonna open the book and read some of the dialogue so you can kind of get a breakdown of what was said, because I think this is definitely something worth mentioning. So Alphacore walks up. You see Ingrid looking at Michael and Lillian, and she says, "Board members of Bravo United, a subsidiary of Mornack Limited, a wholly owned division of Delstar Estates, which in turn is owned by Keystone Holdings, which belongs to Ron Corp Incorporated, of which you two are the majority stockholders." So,
And bro, this dude Copper with no hesitation says,
yeah,
and then what?
and just so you know, Copper and Lillian have powers. We don't really know what their powers are as of yet. Maybe in the Dokuman, I think that's what they're called, Dokuman cards. Maybe it mentioned, but I don't know because I never bought the cards. I kind of wish I should have, but at the time I didn't really have the extra money to buy all of that. And that's another thing. People complain about the price of Rippaverse comic books. It's a graphic novel. This is the equivalent. How much would you say this is the
Yeah.
equivalent of 3 books? 3 or 4 books?
Comic books?
Yeah.
100 pages? I'd say it's the culmination of like 5 books.
5?
I think a comic book usually has like 20, 30 pages.
Yeah, maybe you're right. 20, 30 pages with some ads in between. And that's another thing. There's no ads.
No ads. There's no
It's
ads. I
just
freaking love it.
straight
Because
comic
there'll be a
book.
wasted page in a comic book where it's like the whole page is an ad. I'm like, this like ruins the immersion. This
Why?
ruins the
Yeah,
art style.
why is this here?
This ruins
I
my
get it.
day.
Yeah, I get it.
Like
why
unless
it's
you get
there.
a trade paperback, you're kind of cooked.
So after they go over that, Ingrid, being the gangster that she is, so while Lillian and Michael are getting ready to fly off on their vacation, she uses one of her powered lassos, whatever they are, and destroys the engine on a jet. So as they're walking away, you see Brian say to Lillian, "You know you're gonna have to explain that to Chief Holcomb." She said, "I'll finesse something." I was like, I like this. I like this.
Even the part after she did it, she said, "Looks like your vacay has been delayed. Engine trouble." I was like, dang, bro.
Yeah, I was like, I like this. And the panel, even the art, let me show it up here. The art on that panel is dope. I'm telling you, this book is fire.
I think one of the parts I think is the funniest is the letter that Chuck Dixon left in here. He was like, "Before I knew anything about Eric July, I knew one thing. I liked Eric July. Why? All the right people hated him."
Yo, look, man, is he lying?
I don't think he is.
I mean, that you have Eric July got so much hatred. As a matter of fact, should we read this letter from Chuck Dixon? Should we read the whole thing?
It's kind of long. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, yeah. We won't do it, but it's something definitely worth checking out. It's a book.
Yeah, if you do,
it's a book worth buying. Yeah, it's a book worth buying. It's worth checking out. We didn't cover every single thing within the story, but we covered some of the major points,
important things. Yeah,
and I'm giving this. I mean, I can't give it a perfect score, but man,
I'd give it considering everything. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10.
I'm going way higher than that.
Well, my only reason is because I kind of do want to know more. Maybe like once a few comics come out, I'll probably rate it higher. but I can't be dishonest with my rating.
Right. Okay. So here's what
Yeah,
I will
it's a
say.
really like I think comparative to all the comics coming out now, it's amazing. It's like a 10.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say this is how I will judge. Was the story tight? 100%. 100% all the way through. On that front, I'm giving it a solid 9. Was the
Solid
art
9.
tight?
Wow.
All the way through. There wasn't a panel where I thought, this art is mid. No.
Yeah, and so that is
All
you
the
know
way,
what?
all the way through.
I'll bump mine up to like a hard 8.
Yeah.
Hard 8 soft 9.
I'd say 8.8 on the art. Is it perfect? And the only reason I'm not giving it a perfect because no art is perfect. Obviously, everybody can improve.
On. Now wait a minute. There's
Hold
a few
on.
Batman comic books I consider 10s.
Okay. So I'll say, like I said, 8.8 on the art. I will say collectively the colors. Oh my goodness, the colors
so
popped.
So I didn't
I'm
even
saying
think about
a
that.
9. I'm saying
it's
a 9.
so expressive and it's reminiscent of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books.
It is.
Where like the art was slightly different, but the colors of the art were like they popped out at you.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm saying a 9. I'm saying lettering. Eric Weathers did his thing as always. All of the bubbles were in the exact right spot. My humble opinion. I'm not a comic book creator, but it was pleasing to my eyes. That's how I judge. It was pleasing to my eyes. I'm going to give him a solid 8.9. Collectively, all together, the pencils, there was so they used different inkers, and you can see in different portions where the inker changed. Some of that I didn't really care too much for. I wish they would just use one person, stick with that ink style throughout the whole book. On that, I'll give it a 7.5. Take a little bit off. Collectively, I'll give it a very solid 8.7 altogether. This was a great book. This was a great book. I enjoyed
When is the next campaign for Alphacore?
So Eric July is going to change the way he's releasing books. There's not at some point, I don't know when, but it's not going to be campaigns. It's just going to be release dates. So he's changing that metric. And which I understand. Like, you don't have to, bro, you got a legitimate comic book company. You don't need to crowdfund. Like, you release a book, people buy the book, you make your money. Because I'm sure this is what a lot of people don't realize. Alphacore was cheaper than all the other books.
Yes.
So I think it did. Let's see. Let me go to the Rippaverse and see what Alphacore did. I want to say it was like 1. Was it 1.3?
I thought it was 2 million.
No, it didn't make 2 million. The Alphacore campaign, it didn't quite make that. Let's see, campaigns, Alphacore 1. I'm gonna go now.
970,000.
1.3 million. Okay, so the books were cheaper than ISOM 1 and 2. But here's the thing, where people
got around the same numbers.
People are judging the books by ISOM 2 didn't sell as much as ISOM 1, which did you really expect ISOM 2 to sell as much? What a lot of people don't realize is people who like Eric July that are not even into comic books bought ISOM number 1 just to support him. And I realize that. I'm like, nobody's denying that. But people forget that people are still, and he mentioned this. I knew this early on. I was like, y'all realize when the campaign is over, people are still buying books. That's not included in those campaign sales numbers.
Even though the initial campaign got the most amount of money, he's still getting a crazy number of people buying the books.
He's selling shirts, and I'm getting ready to buy some shirts today. He's selling.
You know what's
shirts.
crazy?
He's selling hats.
As we were talking about this in the middle of the podcast, I was low-key looking at the site because there was some shirts.
I'm getting Lord willing, I'm getting ready to buy some shirts today. So he's still selling shirts. He's still selling hats. He's still selling.
I had a friend of mine lodge a complaint about, like, he was saying how Eric July is building out so much stuff before he even has like another comic book. I'm like, yeah, I think it's a smart idea so he can supplement all the stuff he's doing on the outside.
People don't,
like, if you sell merch and stuff like that along with the stuff you're creating, it makes sense. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what the issue was, but I was like, I don't see an issue with this.
So Eric July funded the Rippaverse off his own money initially. It wasn't crowdfunding.
Before
Yeah, it wasn't
for the
crowdfunding.
crowdfunding.
He recouped with that campaign, he recouped the money that he put in plus some, which allowed him to expand and hire more people. And I don't think people understand that. And the merch allows him to continue that. The merch
And I
allows him
think
to
that
keep
what most
funding
people
this.
don't understand, and especially some other people who critique his stuff, right? Eric July is not just worried about, hey, let me make like a comic book I think is cool, which is also a noble thing too, right? But he's like, I want to make something long lasting that actually affects the comic book industry like a business.
Yes. You're not gonna win a cultural battle by only fighting small battles.
Well, you're not gonna win a cultural war by only fighting one battle.
Right.
I think.
Right. You gotta like all of the independent creators that are creating books, I think, are needed. Eric July is also needed. Silverline Comics is also needed. A lot of these other studios that are popping up are needed. All of these fronts are needed in order to course correct a lot of the issues we have now. So that's my personal rating of
Right.
Alphacore. I think it's worth purchasing. If you don't purchase this book, I'm not gonna say you're missing out. But
if you
I'll
don't
say
purchase this book, you hate comic books.
I won't say that, but I'll say if you have listened to people who told you not to buy the book and you trust their opinion and you think Eric July is some kind of hack, I will tell you, in all of his books that I've read, I don't know why I said read, that I've read, I have been thoroughly impressed and I have enjoyed reading. This is the thing. And I complimented him on this on X. I was like, man, I appreciate the fact that you're bringing fun back to comic books. Like that, like I read Alphacore and I had fun. Like I read that book and I had legitimately had fun.
It was like it was like a return to form for the comic industry because there's a lot of garbage art, a lot of garbage stories.
Oh man,
Everybody's
yeah,
kind of passing it off as stuff that's good, and it's just
yeah.
like, no, it's not. No, it's freaking not. It's horrible.
So that's my review. That's what I think. That's what you think. Go pick up Alphacore. You will not
only go pick up Alphacore, inhale Alphacore.
Yeah, you will not be disappointed.
Alphacore.
Yeah.
Join Alphacore.
Very good book. Thank you guys for joining.